Welcome back. From the conversations around the GMO, let's expand it further to bring in our guest, the Director General, National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies, Professor Abubakar Suleiman, joins us from our Abuja studio. Prof, thank you so much for coming on the program and for your patience. Prof, good morning, if you can hear me.
Good morning.
Yeah, fantastic. I just wanted to be sure you can hear me, Prof. I know that we're here to talk about issues around legislature, democracy, constitutional review, and all the things we're quite been talking about for a while. But I think it's also will be fair. It's your colleague, a professor as well, with VC of Benue State University, has just spoken about what concerns all of us, food that we eat, and suspicion around food colonialism in that sense, given the issues around GMO. I would want to believe you have a comment or two on what that means to you and how legislative oversight or legislative input can play a key role in protecting Nigeria in terms of food security. Perhaps that's a good place to start before we dig deep.
The question you ask has been very, very, addressed so many occasions. Fundamental to any government is the issue of survival of its people. And that is why the issue of food security is very, very important, very, very key. And without food security, we can't talk of any other policies of government. And I want to believe in the last 2 years of this government, and importantly, in the last 2 years of the Legislature National Assembly, to be precise, a lot has been done in ensuring that they support the executive in making sure that we're able to address the issue of food security in our country. You could recall that when this government came on board 2 years ago, the National Assembly, under the Senate President and the Right Honorable Speaker, they came up with what they called their own legislative agenda. And one of the key components of that agenda is the issue of economic reform. How do we support the executive in ensuring that we provide food for our people? We cannot talk of food security in the face of insecurity. We had a lot of crises in the last 10 years where the banditry, the kidnappers, and all forms of terrorism, ravaged the various farmland we have in our country. And that got away some of our farmers. They couldn't farm, they could not do anything. And as such, the prices of food crops, increased all over the country. Importation was stopped in some other areas. And, Nigeria could not even access the basic fruit ingredients. But I want to believe that in the last 1 year thereabout, with a lot of mechanism in place, policy in place, and with the support of National Assembly, we have been able, to really, stem the tide of this food insecurity in the country. The prices of various crops has come down. The basic, food has come down. Rice from 70 to 40. In fact, at the time it got to 100,000 naira. So, but now you can even access, you can even buy, a bag of rice through the distributions of the grains to so many states across the country. You can buy a bag of rice at 40, 50 in some states. I want to believe that the government has been addressing this. And as long as the issue of food, security or insecurity is being addressed, other things can fall into places.
All right, Prof. So let's move further. And I'll start from maybe a bit of an outlier question, which has to do with institutional crisis of confidence, which the National Assembly is also a victim of. In fact, people have called the 9th Assembly a rubber stamp. They are calling this assembly maybe a bigger rubber stamp, and all of those things that people talk about, depending on the size of the stamp in this situation. But the lawmakers have constantly said, look, we're doing the best we can for democracy. So people have their own measure of assessing how much of how they rate the performance of the legislature. perhaps is certain action they should take in terms of oversight or even legislation itself. But you are the institutional person, you're the think tank in this sense. How should a legislature be rated in terms of performance based on the people's perception?
You see, we are in a developing country, and we are in a developing nation. What we expected in terms of maturity, in terms of skill, and in terms of experience of our various organs of government cannot be compared to what obtains in other advanced democracy. We can have a completely detached National Assembly or legislature from the executive. We know the power of the executive. We know the power of the president. We know the power of the governor. And as such, yes, we have three main organs of government: the executive, the legislature, and judiciary. And each of these organs has a delineated role to perform, which is what we call the separation of power. But again, while each has responsibility, delineated responsibility in terms of lawmaking, in terms of adjudications, in terms of execution, we observe a kind of intertwined relationship where you see the executive mediating or trying to permeate into the territory of the legislature. And as such, too, you see where the legislature, in the areas of delegated responsibility, too, perform to a large extent the role of the executive. So in a developing nation like ours, we have this kind of interwoven and interrelated, or a kind of what I refer to as overlapping mandates, in the implementations of various rules. When legislature comes in at the national level, there's no doubt about that. No president wants to watch and allow, to a large extent, the National Assembly or the legislature to determine, not in principle this time around, but in practical time, to determine the leadership without making an involvement. And when this National Assembly came on board in the year June 2023, they made it very clear that they are going to work with the executive. They made it very clear they are not going to fight with the executive. There won't be any crisis, there won't be any chaos, there won't be any frictions. They made it very clear they are going to support Mr. President's, agenda. So nobody was left in doubt as to what we should expect. To me, what is fundamental is not whether the executive tries to determine what the legislature does in terms of lawmaking, in terms of oversight, in terms of representation. What is important to me and to us as an institute is to see the extent to which the legislature supports the executive in making sure that the dividends of democracy is put at the doorstep of Nigerian people. Good governance, how do we address the issue of insecurity, how do we address the issue of starvation, joblessness, the issue of tax regime, how do we address most of these health crises, the talk of the educational issues, how do we address all this? I think to me, that's the most important thing. Whether they have done it or they have not done it well, is now before Nigerian masses to assess. In our own assessment, therefore, I want to believe, to a large extent, Nigerian legislature have done their bit. Where we have problems, and this I want to say with all sense of responsibility, yes, you could see some kind of legislature trying to respond to the whims and caprices of the executive. What obtains in 8th Assembly was not something good for Nigeria. And that was why the 9th Assembly under Lawal and the 10th Assembly under Akpabio tried to at least make some kind of rapport, to the executive. How do we work together? How do we interrelate? How do we ensure that the various agendas set by the executive and the legislature, have been accomplished? And this they've been able to do in the last 2 years. To me, our assessment, our evaluation should be based on whether they have been able to make that law, whether they have been able to do the role of oversight, whether they have been able to represent their constituents very well. That should be our priority. Whether they go in directions of the executive in areas of tax issue, in areas of addressing insecurity, addressing the issue of joblessness, addressing the issue of social welfare is what I believe should be our priority as a people. So if question of such comes up, I can now address it. But the issue of whether they are rubber stamp or not rubber stamp, I wouldn't want to believe that they are rubber stamp in the real sense of being rubber stamp. You could see a situation where, yes, they tend to toe the part of the executive. But to now say everything the executive bring on board is what they toe, we have instances, series of instances where National Assembly, try to disagree with Mr. President on so many issues. When you talk of state level, subnational legislation, yes, you can just really demarcate between what government is doing and what the Assembly is doing. But at national level, I think there are some delineations in terms of implementations, in terms of lawmaking, in terms of oversight, and in terms of ratifications of appointment and some other, initiative or from the executive. So, to me, I don't think it will be fair on the side of Nigerian National Assembly to, see them as a rubber stamp assembly, as people tend to really, suggest.
Yes, but Prof, some would say that, there are dimensions to your position because the rapport that you talk about may give a false sense of stability when there are real issues that the National Assembly should bring to bear its own responsibility of checks and balances. For instance, the recently approved loan, which brings to, the national debt 140 trillion naira plus. So questions are being asked to the weight of scrutiny or the lack of it that the National Assembly has brought to that particular bill for loan approval. But let's talk about the subnational politics now before we go to constitution review. And I'll put it in context. You were former Minister of National Planning between 2014 and 2015, and that's a PDP government. And some would say that you have played your politics well, and there are hints that you are probably positioning to contest for governorship in the next election in Kwara State. But there's also, drumming of support to further the agenda of Kwara North as the next to take the top position in Kwara State. How does that impact on your ambition, sir? And how do you weigh in on that Kwara North agenda ahead of 2027?
I hope it's not an ambush from Buki, because I've not told anybody that I'm contesting an election. Yeah, you could see some signs everywhere. And perhaps because I was one time an aspirant in 2018, yeah, people could suggest. But to go straight to your question, the issue of rotation or zoning is an issue that borders on equity, justice, and fairness. No doubt about that. But what is important to any politicians or any political party is to win an election. Political party is not a pressure group that talk about protecting members' interests. Political party, ultimate goal to any political party is winning an election. So if winning an election, therefore, or triumphant outcome of an electionary process is what a political party fundamentally want to achieve, then the issue of fairness, equity, and justice when it comes to power is secondary. And that is why perhaps I may tend to differ with the proponents of zoning or power rotation when it comes to certain peculiar instance of electionary instance. In Kwara, to be precise, in 2023, I stood firmly for the Kwara North. I made my point very clear then, that in line with equity, on the basis of justice and fairness, let them try it for the first time. And that was why perhaps that time you see the PDP under Bukola Saraki, it zoned the governorship, slot to Kwara North. But what comes after it? It failed. Now, the information we are gathering, if that is the real thing to go by, is that the opposition party in Kwara State led by Bukola Saraki, is insisting that their next gubernatorial candidate under PDP will come from Kwara Central. Kwara Central is the most populous senatorial district in Kwara State. Kwara Central parade the best of elites in Kwara State with due respect to other parts of the zone. If PDP is coming with a candidate from Kwara Central, it will amount to political suicide on the side of APC to do otherwise. I'm a student of political science. I'm in politics for years, for the past 30 years. I'm saying with all sense of responsibility and authority that should APC attempt doing otherwise to what PDP is trying to do in Kwara State, that will be suicidal for the party in Kwara State. So if PDP is zoning to Kwara North, I don't have any problem with that. You can also zone around to Kwara North. But if PDP is zoning it to Kwara Central, it won't be wise enough for APC to go to Kwara North. I wouldn't want to go into debate whether Kwara North people are united. That is not an issue. When they give them the ticket, they will come together. But looking at the contingents, you know, the exigencies of this time, if the intelligence we are getting from PDP is anything to come by, it will be wrong for APC leadership to want to cede power to Kwara North in the next coming election.
Well, totally out of time, Prof. Would have allowed you to continue in that trajectory because we have loads of questions. So just to confirm, you're a member of the APC, right?
I'm working with APC.
That's not a question.
And I can't do anything.
No.
And I cannot do anything otherwise than to work with APC.
No, Prof, that's not the answer to the question. Are you a member of the APC? It's a straight question, Prof.
I should give an answer. It's not for you to determine what the answer should be. I'm working with APC. Currently, I'm the DG of National Institute under National Assembly. When the right time comes, you know the party I belong to.
Well,
for now, I'm a technocrat.
Well, I'm working for APC. You didn't answer the question, but I'll let you off the hook. Thank you for coming on the program. Professor
it's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Abubakar Suleiman, Director General, National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, just before we go, I think what just happened right now almost tells a story of what we're about to show you, right? So this is former Governor of Ekiti State, Ayodele Fayose, wearing a PDP hat at an APC event, endorsing President Bola Tinubu.
The President and Commander of the Armed Forces, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, for second term. And equally, because that is the reason why we are here. And to endorse our own governor, humility personified, our own governor, Abayomi Oyebanji, and his deputy bow for second term. Your Excellency.
I will say, I am working with the APC, but I am in the PDP. Perhaps I must sound like what Prof said.
I am very, I would say I'm very sad about what is going on with our political party in Nigeria. It's quite sad. I think the only party that seems to be clear on what they are doing, in my view, is the APC for now. Let's see what the ADC will bring to the table. But elements in the PDP are making a mess of what political parties should really be all about. And that's all I can say. Yes, he said that if we had watched further, he said he's not ever going to join the APC.
There you go.
But he's endorsing.
So at this point,
this is a redefinition of marriage. When you're married to a particular individual, you keep looking over your shoulders.
Yeah, we have to run, guys.
What is happening outside?
We have to run now.
Amorphous politics is, maybe we'll create that as a conversation. Amorphous and amphibian politics.
So something to look forward to in the coming days. But it's been a great time with you today. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kayode Okikiolu.
Indeed. Thank you for your time and company. I am Bukola Koka.
Bye-bye. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma.